All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 66 of Celebrating the Brand Ambassador. I'm very excited to be here with my two guests. A, because they know each other, and two, they have so much to offer to this conversation, like so many of my guests do. But this one's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of good nuggets in here. So with me, I have Maria Christopherson. That's a long name, now, by the way. That had to fit
Yep.
into like a post and all that stuff. She's a senior manager for experiential marketing for Campari. And then I have Cesar joining me is also with Maria is Cesar Sandoval. He is the national brand ambassador for Casa Lumbre. And
Sure.
very specifically Albasola and what's
Mixta. Yep.
Mixta. Very excited to be here. Sorry for the babbling start. It's been a long day for me. So, but we're going to get going. So I always like to start the question because I've gotten to know the two of you pretty well in the last year through the Brand Ambassador Academy, but I don't know if everybody else knows your incredible story. So I'm going to, Todd Richmond's joining us. Hi, Todd. Saying hello to Maria and Cesar.
Hi.
Yeah. Thanks, Todd. But I would love to hear, you both have very unique paths into the industry. So Marie, I'm going to start with yours. Give us a little your background and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, so I might be one of the few that work in trade advocacy that have never actually bartended. But really, I got my start. I was a fresh college grad who studied marketing, and my first job out of school was working for this small company called Fever Tree Cocktail Mixers. And at the time, it was just their small food and beverage importer based in California. And there was like 8 people, I think, when I started. So
Wow.
I got a real crash course into everything from the 3-tier distribution system to marketing, PR, sales, events, supply chain, you name it. And realized pretty quickly that I really love this industry, food and bev, spirits, hospitality. So from there, I moved to Chicago and worked agency side for Pernod Ricard for a couple of years. And then that eventually brought me to my opportunity to move to New York and work with Campari, which is where I've been for the last 6 years or so.
Fantastic. And before you started your position now, what were you doing before?
So I am very recently, I think I'm about 4 weeks in as the senior manager of experiential marketing for Campari, which means I do all trade and consumer events for the company. But before that, for the last 6 or so years, I was one of the senior managers for on-premise and trade advocacy. So spent a lot of time working with brand ambassadors, trade festivals, our own programming, you name it.
Fantastic. Very good, concise answer. well done, you. And Cesar, give us a little of your background.
Yeah, definitely. So mine starts a little different. I started in the industry at a very fancy restaurant called Chili's, my first job. And it was really to save money to buy my drum set. I'm a musician, and that's what I was doing at the time, going really full on. And a friend said, hey, there's a new restaurant opening. So started there and kind of worked my way up from busser, server, and all that good stuff. And then eventually bartending, and then eventually sportive bar director for a couple of bars. And part-time, I was working for an agave spirit called Don Fulano Tequila and Fortaleza Tequila. So I was working for them for a little bit. And then I got a text message from Camille Austin and saying that we were launching some new products and seeing if I was interested. And I took the call. And once I kind of blind tasted it, I was in. And now I'm the national ambassador for both of those brands. So, yeah.
Fantastic. And that was really concise. That was, that was super fast. I'm impressed. You guys win the prize for the most concise descriptions of your very fantastic careers. I was going to say, and before, how did Camille Austin get to know who you were? Because, Camille Austin doesn't just call people out of the blue.
Yeah. So I didn't actually know her. I knew of her, but I didn't know her. And after, everything, I think mutual friends, I think people from Don Fulano Tequila and Fortaleza, I think she started kind of asking around. And eventually, I think some people just kind of recommended my name a couple times, and that's how she reached out. But I don't think we ever formally met, and we Zoomed a couple of times and then finally met in person. So.
No. I know there's more to that story, but we'll get to it later. I know there's a lot about you going to Mexico and things of that nature, but we'll actually talk about it here because, meeting both of you, I'm like, wow, I feel like I haven't achieved as much as these two have in such a young time. You're both so young, so ambitious, have very successful careers. And I think people should learn a lot from that. So what do you think is the key to your success? Certain like work philosophies, and do you have any best practices you recommend to others, to kind of climb the corporate ladder as fast as you two have? Marie, I'll start with you.
Sure. I think a lot of it comes down to, honestly, values and belief systems that were instilled in me at a really young age. And one of those things that I give a lot of credit to is just this belief that I can really do anything that I set my mind to. So I'm very fortunate that I was kind of raised with a level of self-confidence and self-assurance that really the only thing that's getting in my way is kind of me, right? So I moved across the country from California to Chicago when I was 24 because that's what I wanted to do. And the only person that was going to stop me was me. So I think in that regard, just this, this confidence and kind of knowing my own ability and knowing what I bring to the table, what I bring to an organization, what I bring to a brand has definitely helped get me to where I'm at today. Of course, in tandem with a lot of hard work, commitment, dedication, follow through. So much of this business is about building relationships. So really showing someone that, you're reliable, you'll be there kind of when they need it. But I think another important part, at least for me and how I come to work and what I've decided that I want to do with my life, is finding the things that also really motivate you. So I've definitely put my 10,000 hours in this industry to kind of be an expert in this space, but I don't know that I'd be as far as I am now, or that I would have been as dedicated and put in the time and effort and quite a lot of myself if I didn't really love my job. If I didn't get a sense of passion and joy and fulfillment from what I do, I don't know that this would be my career path. And I think sometimes we overlook that, the kind of underlying motivation of why we're doing what we're doing. And it's important to find that what drives you, right? So I don't just do events because I like doing events. For me, there's an emotional factor about, I love a sense of community building and guest experience, and that's really rewarding. And that's why I'm in the job that I'm doing and the industry that I'm in. And so taking a step back and kind of figuring out like, what's that emotional connector? What's that driver for you? I think can be really helpful as well.
No, I think I love that. I think it's really true. You do have to love what you're doing and then put the time and effort to become the best at it. And you strike me from all our interactions as a very disciplined person. You actually, as you were talking, I'm like, oh my God, you remind me of it's going to make me sound really old. My daughter. I'm like, you two are very similar peas in the pod. I couldn't figure out, like, who does she remind me of? Because my daughter is very much that way. Excuse me. And it makes me very happy because I'm like, oh, I can see where she's going to be going. It's going to be very successful. But for you, was there a way to get to be good at your job? Was there, what was your degree in? And then have you continued your education since then?
Yeah, for sure. So my degree was in marketing, and then I had a minor in economics. And really, when I was graduating, like, marketing is very broad. You can be a marketer in any industry, in any field, whether it's for an agency or for a company. So I didn't necessarily know that I wanted to go in spirits. I just happened to kind of fall into this industry because that's where my first job was when I came out of school. But I quickly realized that I really enjoy this. And so one thing about me is I'm a little bit more introverted than a lot of people, especially brand ambassadors and in this space, which means I do a lot of listening and a lot of observing. And that's taught me a lot just about the industry, about the way people carry themselves, about noticing how brands show up in the space. So I think that's been a huge factor for me. I think the other thing is just I really enjoy learning a lot. So while I've never bartended, I am a little bit self-taught in the regard that, I pour over all of the cocktail books that come out. I've participated in WSET, and I'm kind of constantly seeking out additional education to help make me a little bit more well-rounded within the space.
No, that's great. Now, continuing education is so important. And have you had a mentor as well to kind of help you?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, part of what kind of got me from Chicago to New York is my former client, and then kind of now former boss, Carlin Monroe, who works at Campari. She has definitely been a huge mentor, just someone with a lot of experience, someone that's really kind of helped shepherd me and be, you know, a sounding board. I also, Anne Louise Marquis is now a close friend and a colleague for me as well. And I think a lot of her kind of mentorship and the kinship that we have of being at very similar places within our careers, but she's just a couple years ahead. She has a lot of really sage advice and wisdom that I find really helpful as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have talked about like growing in their careers, having a mentor is something they highly recommend and find. I know it's definitely been really helpful to me in my career. Thank you, Marie. Caesar, so for yourself, I mean, tell us a little bit about your philosophy. You know, what do you believe has been the key to your success, and what's your philosophy or best practices you follow?
Yeah, I think similar to Marie, I think my upbringing has a lot to do with it. I came from a single mother and two sisters, you know, just around strong females, and just always working, always hustling. My mom, to this day, she's about to be 66 and she's still hustling, you know. So I think that's where it comes from. You know, my mom always taught us, you know, look someone in the eye, go say hello, make sure they, you know, when they come to our house, did you offer them water? Did you offer them something to eat? And I think that's, looking back at it now, that's kind of where the hospitality started, because my mom kind of taught us that. And I think it's sort of, I always say this, that it's similar to that Beatles lyric where we don't have much to give, but what I have, I'll give to you is very in especially in Mexican hospitality or Latin hospitality. But I think it was in me. So I think that's where it started. You know, my mom was always school first, education. And although I wasn't very nerdy or school rat, I did do a lot of bad things. I was a little bit more of a rebel, but now growing up, I see so much of the importance. I am now that parent or that, you know, older person saying education is the number one thing. And I very much agree. So I think that's kind of where it started. And then once I think maybe Marie, maybe for you as well, I think we're people pleasers. We rather give than sort of take. And that's where my true pleasure comes from. Everyone always says, what makes you like kind of happy? It's like making other people happy. Of course, I'm focused on myself, but I think that's the best thing about bartending, like live or serving someone, is being able to curate that experience and really affecting them for them to leave with a positive experience. So I think guest experiences and interaction, and too, like Marie, you know, I listen a lot and I ask questions, and it's not so much about what I'm gonna say, but really like listen, sort of process it, and then come with a better response. So I think conversation, especially in today's age, has gotten a little flustered. Everything's instant. Everything's almost generic. It's just very top line. How are you? Busy? Me too. All right. See you later. Hope all is well. So I think it's really refreshing when you get to these large social events or, you know, these industry parties, and then you connect with someone, which I think me and Marie, every time we see at a party, we're like, how are you? Like, we take a little time. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to stop working for a second. Let me go have a little water with you or whatever. Let's just walk. So I think those are the like refreshing moments. And of course, again, education is number one, and, you know, reading books and researching online. And even if it's not a college degree, I think there's so much access in the internet and in the world now that, you know, you can get a lot of information out there.
No, and I agree. And networking is so important. And I do agree with those intimate moments, because I think it's something that the younger generation, teaching them about, yeah, I get it. We're in a big party and there's probably lots of people. And I know it took me until I got a little bit older to realize this, having those real moments. Like, I'd rather have 5 conversations than 20 just, hey, how you doing? Kind of touching, you know, kissing babies, like, you know, touching hands, kissing babies, because I realized those interactions are so much more valuable. And I kind of make sure, if I know certain people are going to be there, I seek them out now, so I can have that conversation and almost have some ideas of some things I really wanted to catch up. I'll like look at their social media, because I realized I wanted to have a real like, oh my God, I just saw you here. This is something I want to talk about, just to remind myself of some of the things I want to chat about. But I think that's great words of advice. And you're right, you can learn so many things online. You know, you don't have to go back to school. I mean, some big companies require you to have a marketing degree, but you can. I've gotten my MBA from an online training company called the Power MBA. It was created in Spain. It's an incredible program. I highly recommend it if you're somebody who's an entrepreneur. It's taught me so much about how to run my own business. And because I don't have time or the money to go back to school. to get my master's, and I have no need to, but I know I need the extra education. So I think it's really, really important. Well, thank you. That was really some great advice. So let's jump into brand ambassadorship, because that's what the show is called, but also, so many people, as we both know, want to be brand ambassadors. All right. So, and you two are both work in the position where you actually have to hire people, or, at least evaluate them. So what do you look for? Who do you think is a good fit for a potential brand ambassador? And then also, let's talk about what's a red flag for you. Like, if you see something quality in somebody, you're like, no, that's definitely not going to work. So Caesar, this time I'll start with you.
Awesome. Well, I guess I'll start with the red flags because I see so many of them. But I would just I would just say, I think, and it's a golden rule, never be over intoxicated. If you are, get out of here. We're in the spirits industry, but we're also professionals. So if you're that person that's always drunk at an event, if you're a person that, is always partying and all that good stuff, all the things that come with non-professionalism, which I guess is general. I think those are red flags, and I guess I'll let Marie kind of speak on those. But I think what I look for in ambassadors or potential ambassadors is really sort of a good foundation of just overall keen, good person with a good head on their shoulders, but also sort of this determination or this integrity about themselves. So if they're willing to learn, I rather much take a brand ambassador that is their first role, but that they're willing to learn, they're excited, and they're doing the work, and they have initiative. I have this sort of acronym that I use when looking for potential candidates, which is called CHIPS, which I use from an old job. But CHIPS stands for common sense, hospitality, initiative, passion, and self-awareness. So those are the sort of the qualities I look for when looking for an ambassador, and they all go. Some may be low, and if that self-awareness, if they know that they need more passion or more common sense, like they know. But if they have that overall chips, I'm happy to teach them. And I rather take a brand ambassador, like I said, that's very green, doesn't know, maybe it's their first time, but they're willing to learn, than the brand ambassador that's done it for 30 years, but they don't do it that way because at their last job they didn't do it that way, or whatever. That's stubborn, not willing to learn or mold. That's sort of what I look for in brand ambassadorship.
No, I think those are all great points. I was going to say, before you even get to meet them, if you're looking at somebody's CV, is there anything that kind of stands out for you, like certain things, like certain experiences they've had, or that you might be like, oh, okay, I think this person's worth meeting?
Yeah, I mean, I guess sometimes that's also the issue with social media. It's such an important part of our culture now, and of ambassadorship. So I guess in that social media, depending kind of what you're seeing, I think people are now looking at resumes just as much as they're looking at their social profile. So just seeing kind of what they're posting, is it some weird stuff that maybe is not so good to be posted? Or is it like, hey, I went to, now you see cocktails and you're seeing distillery videos and you're seeing like group pictures with them and friends. It's like, great, this person is social, they're motivated, they're doing the work to try to network and get out there. So I think that's kind of what I look for.
Yeah, I think those are really great indicators that they're right for the position. Marie, how about you?
Well, first, I'm definitely stealing that acronym. I've never heard it before.
Yeah,
but
I know, I like it.
I will be calling you later to talk about it, because I love that. And I think it parallels nicely a lot of how I approach the hiring process, and how, we build teams at Campari as well. Is the biggest thing that I'm vetting as a hiring manager when I'm talking to someone is, are they a culture fit? I can teach you about the product. I can teach you about production process, terroir, you name it. I cannot teach you how to be professional, engaging, charismatic, and responsible, which is really a core part of being a brand ambassador. So when I'm talking to someone, that's kind of what I'm trying to vet a little bit, is what's their personality? How are they showing up? Are they prepared? Are they well-spoken? Do I see them also really contributing to our team? Because we have a team of about 6 or 7 ambassadors across the portfolio, and it's very tight knit. So do I see them kind of contributing and fitting in not only with the brand ambassador team, but with our corporate values at large, right? And if we're talking about red flags, the the biggest thing that I'm vetting for is if someone's here for the right reason. So the first question I ask any candidate when I talk to them is, why are you interested in being the brand ambassador for insert brand, whatever we're hiring for? It's not, why do you want to be a brand ambassador? And it's not, why do you want to work for Campari America? It's why this brand, this role right now. I want to understand a sense of specificity. Do you have an authentic or a genuine connection to this brand or this category? Because I have had people, not recently, thankfully, but I have had people who have answered that question as just, well, I like to travel and I like to talk to people. So I think that it'd be cool to have an expense account and get to do that. PSA, that is the wrong answer. Don't tell the hiring manager that.
Yeah, it could be true, but don't say that out loud.
Yeah. So I think it's just about sometimes people, maybe the idea of what a brand ambassador is to them is not how we view and employ brand ambassadors at our company. And so it's making sure that there's kind of an understanding there of kind of what we're really looking for in the role to make sure that this person would be a fit. Because it goes both ways, right? We want to be happy with them, but we also want them to be signing up for a job that they're going to be happy with as well.
No, I think, it's important also for a brand owner to be transparent, right? Or you're hiring to know what they are getting into, because I've definitely had, there's still somebody in this industry, I think, is probably still holding a grudge against me because I would not recommend them for the job. And I was like, you would hate it here. There's no way you would fit into this corporate culture. I'm like, at Diageo, I was like, it's such a corporate place. You're not a corporate kind of person. And this would not be a good fit for you. They would probably fire you and you would be miserable. And they were not happy with that answer. I was like, they were judged. And they're like, every time I see them, they're always like, see, I'm succeeding. I said, I never thought you wouldn't be a good brand ambassador. I just didn't think you'd be a good brand ambassador at Diageo. I was like, I was saving you. But, no good deed goes unpunished, I guess. But I think it's important it goes both ways.
Yeah, I wouldn't say a misconception because I love what I do. Yes, we travel, but our job also is not really, or what I like to say is our job is not really posting any negative or I don't think Marie and I are like delayed again at the airport, like expense sheets, like all the stuff that goes behind the scenes that no one sees. And I think that's another misconception, I think, from the new generation of like, oh, you just get to travel and eat and drink and everywhere. And yes, those are parts of it, but that's a very minute thing. And I will never, ever post on social media like, thanks XYZ airline for delaying me. Like there's so many problems at the airline. There's expenses, there's fire drills all the time. And I think there's already so much negativity out in the world that's my rule. I will not post any negative content. And so I just think it's a misconception of what we do. So like, when someone answers, I would love to travel and eat and drink all day. It's like, well, you're definitely not good for the job and you have no idea.
Yeah, because you don't know the other stuff. I actually have a seminar, Cesar. I'll send to you because it's called So You Want to Be a Brand Ambassador. And I've given it at USBG meetings across the country. And I feel successful because at every meeting, I talk at least 3 people out of becoming brand ambassadors. Because at the end, because they're like, oh my God, I had no idea. And I'm like, my job is done. I have talked you out of this position because you now realize it was not the right fit for you. So, because it is an amazing job, but it's not all the glamour. We just put up the pretty pictures. And I agree. I don't like to put any negative stuff out in the world. Also, just makes it sound really privileged. But like, oh, our airline was, delayed, or my Uber didn't show up.
First world problems.
First world problems. Exactly. All right, so let's talk about, we've already started talking about managing, right? So, but, Marie, you've been a manager for what, 10 years? You managed people for 2 different companies for over 10 years, Pinot and for Campari and Caesar. Am I saying this correct? You help kind of assist Camille Austin in kind of helping to manage the team. Is that correct? Yes. So being a manager is such a challenging role because brand ambassadors, as we were just talking about, people come in all shapes and sizes. They come in all different personalities. They all have different skill sets they're bringing to the table. They also are working in different markets that all have their own challenges. It could be a commercial state or, a control state or just a regular state. So what do you believe makes a good manager? Like, what is your philosophy when it comes to managing different people on your team? Marie, I'll throw this to you first.
Sure. So I think the first thing that's important to recognize is that there is a difference between being a manager and a leader. Those are not the same. Often they are conflated. A manager is someone that checks in on your deliverables, that is managing you against your deadlines, right? A leader is someone that nurtures you, that challenges you, that helps you grow into your own personally and professionally. And so I try my best to kind of be a leader among the team and really help set the culture. And I view my role as working with and managing people as finding ways to empower them to kind of be their best selves. How can they show up as their best self at work, and how can they continue to kind of grow and be challenged? And I think to your point, Elaine, you really have to build unique and personal or individual relationships with each of the people that you manage. So at times in my career, I've managed anywhere from 5 to 15 people, which is a lot of people to be managing. But you really have to recognize that everyone has a different background, different life experiences, different ways that they listen and communicate, how they receive feedback, how they give feedback. So you kind of have to meet them where they are, not where you are, not what your work style is, not where, what the group is asking for, but where's that person at and what do they need in order to succeed and be successful? And, where are they struggling and where are they doing really well? And how do I kind of pull that out of them a little bit more? And I think the other thing is recognizing that it's actually a two-way street. So as much as my job is there to, support you, champion you, give you feedback, make sure you're managing your workload and your deadlines, I also need that input from you as well. So I need to hear from you. What are you challenged with? What are you feeling really proud about? What are your recent wins and successes? So as much as you kind of have that two-way dialogue, I think that kind of better interpersonal relationship really builds.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I think leadership, you're right. Leadership definitely as a manager is really, really important. And but the two-way street, that's a big one. It's like, and being a manager, you have to be that person that allows people to feel comfortable to have that conversation, to be able to expose your failures, because sometimes that's not so easy. And I definitely have had some bad managers where I realized, oh, I can't tell you that. You will hold that against me if I tell you that I was not as successful at this as I should have been, and I would like to learn from you, but you're not the right person. Yeah. And those are really challenging positions to be in. Caesar, how about you? What's your philosophy?
I sound like a little bit of an echo, but just to add on Marie's, I think she said it right. So can I just plead the fifth and go on to the next? No, I think big part of it, and this has been a challenge for me. I think naturally I'm a leader, and once you get put into sort of maybe an official managing role or an official role, it's really about molding these and sort of approaching all of these different egos and personalities different, because someone may be, just say it to me straight, that's the way I work best, and then no, I'm a little more sensitive, like I don't like the way you told me so, like can you please say please and thank you after everything. Like you have to mold these, and I try to be nice, but my whole life I think I've been a little bit more direct, so softening my approach, just like Maria, I also ask for feedback. Is there something that I've done or said, or is there a better way to communicate with you? And I think that just comes with knowledge, with experience that you continue to get better at. I think I came from the bartender mode of like, we need stuff on the fly, like let's go, tickets are flying, blah, blah, blah. So now that we have the time, now we have a little bit of a Zoom or a meeting, hey, slow the pace down, relax, and let's just like have a better and softer approach. So I think that's always been my challenge of, in today's world, everything is go, go, go. It's like, it's okay to slow down and just relax and convey the message in an appropriate way. But yeah, agreed. It's really all about everything kind of Marie said. So I don't want to just echo her thoughts.
No, I mean, I think you're just re-emphasizing some really, really great points, and you added on your own layer, because as a manager, you have to check yourself as well. Like, am I managing the right way? Am I listening? Am I approachable? And am I, leading the charge? I think, one thing I learned is when I became a parent, it definitely makes you a better manager, because I've had to learn to manage a little human who is irrational and emotional and like, and it does, as I'm like, oh, actually, that's a good approach. I can use that on other people because it seems to work with them. And you have to learn to listen a lot. And that's something, as you get older, I think we all learn to listen more than we speak. I probably could still use a little more of that. I'm constantly telling me, I'm like, just tell me to stop talking. And I'm going to do that now. All right. So let's talk about overwhelm, which I came onto the show feeling a little bit of that. Because it is something, as somebody who talks to a lot of brand ambassadors, and I think we all can relate to this. We all have felt overwhelmed, and if, and in whatever role we've all been in, you've definitely have probably gotten requests when your plate is so full and then somebody keeps throwing something else on it, and it's about, how do I tell my manager I can't do that right now, or how to push it off? And I think for brand ambassadors, this is very true. They are the go-to person for most people, for the distributor, the brand people, the salespeople, and they're constantly asking them things. And the brand ambassador is about to like, oh my God, I haven't seen my own house in so long. And I've had people like crying on the phone to me and like, I can't do that thing. And I haven't been home. And I'm like, okay, let's like talk you through it. Like, let's go down. But how do you recommend as a manager when do you think it's appropriate for a brand ambassador pushback? There's a lot of things they just have to do. It's like sometimes your job is just sucks and you just have to do all this stuff, and that's just the nature of the job. But there are sometimes that are appropriate for a brand ambassador to say, you know what, you don't really need me. So when is it appropriate for them to say no? And then like, what are some tactics that when they want to say no, that they should use? So Cesar, I guess this time I'll start with you.
Yeah, definitely. I think, I don't know I think the appropriate time to sort of push back, I'm okay with pushing back or sort of challenging. I wouldn't even say it's a pushback. It's just more of a question, but having a solution prepared. Like, listen, I don't think it's worth my time to go to this event for 30 people across the country if, we're only doing it for an hour sort of thing. So I think, we talk a lot about ROI and all that good stuff, but I think there's times where regional managers or higher ups are just going to want the brand ambassador because they are the brand, they are the vision, they are the embodiment of the brand. So of course I want that brand ambassador, and everyone so wants them, but sometimes it's good to push back, or, hey, how can I help you now with the technology of Zoom and all of these video things? Can I just like zoom in, we'll buy a projector and let's put it up there, and I could still be there, but I have other sort of deadlines. So I think empowering the regional managers or whoever your upper is, of like, how can I help you just in case, because I can't make it. But just saying I can't do it or I don't want to do it without a solution, that's just not enough for me. So I think that's the thing. And then for burnouts, I mean, just to prevent that, I completely agree. I think we're in the society of instant everything everywhere all at once, not to quote that movie, which was a great movie, but we just need to take time to slow down. And if you're going to prevent more disaster of yourself burning out, of having sort of a nervous or panic attack or something like that, like, it's okay, take a rest. We'll have someone else do it. Like, we can figure this out. There's always a solution. And I think at Casa Lumbre and many, Campari, we're always solution driven. Like, okay, that's fine. We have emergencies or what we call fire drills all the time. Let's find a solution. It's all right. No one's dying. We'll figure this out.
So they should come to you. Like, if they're like, hey, listen, I have this thing. I mean, should they come to the manager? If they don't have a solution, it's like, I just don't think I should do this. This is not my event. So should your ambassador say no to you and you say no to somebody else, or can they say no directly?
I think.
What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the power is really how to say no. I think that's so before you go to the final answer, whatever that is, whoever that is like, hey, I need your help. I don't think we should do this. This is a waste of my time. It's like, okay, let's slow it down. Let's break it down. Let's find a solution. So we say, hey, you know what? And it's the approach. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to do this because of X, Y, and Z, but I would love to see if I can help you with X, Y, Z.
Gotcha. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. So coming with a solution, I totally agree with that. And Marie, how about you? When do you think it's appropriate for them to say no, and what do you recommend that they do when they are saying no?
Yeah, I think feeling comfortable saying no is a challenge for a lot of people, even for myself. As Cesar mentioned, like, I'm definitely a people pleaser. And so seeing that kind of in your team as well is really important as a manager, to kind of recognize the people that might have a harder time with maybe establishing some boundaries over other people, especially because I think a lot of brand ambassadors are really people oriented, really relationship oriented. And so you want to be the person that can step in and help, but you can't do that. You can't pour from an empty cup, right? So I think it's really important to kind of evaluate what's being asked of you against your circumstance. So what does your current bandwidth look like? How frequently are you traveling this month? Are you up to date on your admin? Could someone else do this? Is this something that you could, hire a bartender or train someone else to kind of step in? Or is there like an immense amount of value that you as the brand ambassador, as the public facing representation of this brand and this company is going to provide that really does kind of necessitate you being there, right? So whether it's commercially, like this is going to help us crack a menu or get cases, or, this might be a big media and PR opportunity, kind of evaluating, does this really have to come to me, or is there another way that we can satisfy this? And then I think exactly what Cesar said, it's all about being solutions oriented in the approach. So I think it's okay to push back and say, I'm so sorry, I would love to, but I can't do this. But, here's someone else that we could hire to do this. Or actually, I would love to help you with this cocktail development, but I need an extra 2 weeks against the deadline. So I think being a little collaborative in the approach and showing that, I do want to help. It just unfortunately might not be me. And here's some solutions and ways that we can, work towards this is definitely the right way that you kind of want to approach those situations.
No, I think that those are great points because, as you said, Cesar, like ROI, like, is it worth like me spending a couple $1,000s to like show up for 30 people in an hour? And yeah, is it the right event? Like sometimes there is events you have to be there. It's the president of the company or it's a press event. But sometimes, Marie, you and I talked about this. Sometimes, it's a tasting at a liquor store that is just a normal liquor store. It's not Astor Wine and Spirits. It's a regular store. And do you really need me? Like, no, you don't need me. Like, but I have an amazing promotional person who is great. Like, I would hire them 10 times a Sunday, and they will do an incredible job and they'll be happy to do it, and so come to the table with a solution. And then there are other times you just have to suck it up. And you just can't. You just got to sometimes go to your mind and be like, oh my God, I just said, like, my travel is so insane. If I squeeze this one more trip in there, they're not going to get the best me. Like, is there a solution? Is there somebody else that might be able to fill in to do this job as well? Because a lot of times there is. There might be another brand ambassador who's just as good. You just need to train them on the brand and they could, make it work. But other times, unfortunately, that's why not everybody can be a brand ambassador. You just got to do the job.
Yep.
No, great stuff. All right. So this is something I'm really excited about. It's basically something I've been talking about a lot lately with a lot of different people. And basically, we all know this, right? We live in a bubble. The cocktail world is, as an industry, right? There's maybe 10,000 of us in this bubble. I don't even know. I'm just making up a number, but does that sound about right? Globally,
10,001.
10,001, around that, right? 10,001.
Bob.
Yeah. Right. So 10,001. Right. So, we live in an event, and it's, I do believe it's our job to kind of actively engage others from the outside, like bring them into the bubble. Because I think, Cesar, you and I talked about it. Like, I keep meeting people. They've never heard of Tails. They have no idea what USBG is. They don't know this world exists. So one here, and I know you guys both touched about this when we were talking, what are your thoughts about this? And then what are some of the things you personally or your company is doing to kind of bring other people in? Cesar, do you want to start?
Sure. Yeah, I think, you're right. You're right about the bubble. And I think what happened prior to COVID is that bubble was filled with many more people. And there was also the access of sort of passing down knowledge, wisdom, and information to the sort of the next generation, and sort of like, all right, I'm out, but I've done my job. This young Padawan is now going to be a Jedi, sort of thing. And I think COVID wiped out a certain area where most of these masters and these really amazing professionals are like, well, that was my last year. Like, I'm going to pursue something that I've been wanting to do. I have X amount of money saved up, whatever it may be. And I think we lost a lot of great people. And what we really lost was that passing of information to the next generation. And I think I see this gap bigger than ever, where everyone sort of kind of left, and just the guy that was bartending for a couple of months is now the bar manager, and sort of just this like let's manage up sort of system. So I think that's what happened, and I think what we do really well at Casa Lumbre, everyone wants to be on the 50 best, on the Tales of the Cocktail, and all of these prestigious awards and ceremonies. But I think what we do at Casa Lumbre is we need a good balance of that. We need a balance of, yes, we want maybe some clout and some partnership and collaborations with some bigger names, but we also have the responsibility of kind of helping someone that, again, maybe it's not like a brand ambassador, but it's a bartender that's really working their ass off, or a restaurant or an establishment that you're like, I see potential in 2-3 years. They're doing everything right to kind of getting these prestigious awards. Let's kind of help them get there. So when we do events, what we look at is, depending on the city or state, we look at local vendors that are in that state. So if we're going to Miami, which we just were in South Beach, who in Miami is doing some cool dehydrated garnishes, some syrups or something? How can we sort of involve the local community, kind of give them that clout, kind of put their logos on our menus, and sort of kind of raise the bar? We now have the stage, so how can we put more people on the stage that maybe don't have it? So yeah.
No, I think that's really cool. And you also said, I think you work with local vendors too, like meaning soda companies and things of that nature.
Yeah, and we did a little bit of research, because most of these, or the bigger companies, especially when COVID was, like we were all using an X brand. I won't name it, but they had everything we needed. It was super easy and it would get here quick. But then you realize, you're like, how much waste am I producing? Is this money even going towards whatever, the right people? And so then you realize we kind of started building this sort of responsible vendor list of who is doing similar stuff that maybe is not as fast, as quick, and maybe we pay a little bit more, but we're helping a local, a sustainable, a family-owned business. And that's kind of where we changed our motto. And I think we've adapted that very well throughout all our brands. And that's what we're trying to do, because sometimes it is really hard. You just have to go with the, plastic disposable glassware. And every time we fight back, we're like, we get that these are the only ones that can make a branded, but can we just go eco? Can we go at least plastic number one, where it's a recyclable plastic? And those are the little details that I think a lot of us miss.
No, I think that's really, really clever and a great initiative. I'm loving hearing it. And Marie, what does the team do?
Yeah, totally. I think I think you bring up a really great point that sometimes this cocktail bubble feels really insular, and it's like a little serious, a little self-important, especially to Cesar's point, like we obviously care about the awards list and being really premium and, having prestigious brands and working with talent. But I think you also have to remember that, like, for me, excellent hospitality is like a warm, welcoming, inviting space where I can be myself, I can have fun, I can make memories. It's really convivial. And so I think it's really important to kind of remember that and keep that approach as we're out there, whether it's with the brand ambassador team or activating events. And one of the conversations I would say that we have pretty frequently and are definitely really mindful of is, how are we continuing to reach a broad and diverse array of hospitality workers? And to Cesar's point, never has that been more noticeable than post-COVID, when maybe some of this kind of talent pipeline or some of the mentorship that existed a little bit before just really seems to have kind of diminished. And you have a large set of new talent that have come into the industry that maybe want this experience or want this knowledge, but really don't know where to start. So for us, we have kind of a couple broad approaches, right? Whether it's the Campari Academy, which is a physical space, but also an online entity that has thousands of hours of educational content, everything from like the basics of making bourbon to advanced technique in fat washing, right? Things that are kind of accessible to, again, meet people where they're at on their journey within their career and within this industry. We are also active at a variety of different industry festivals in the US, and in addition to hosting some of our own events kind of outside of that. And with that, we're working with a variety of different festivals or charity partners, again, just to broaden who we're reaching, really mindful that, whether you work at a dive bar or a prestigious cocktail bar that's on a list, or maybe you don't work at any of those bars and like you just don't get supplier reps that come in, like all of those people are equally as valuable for us to build a relationship and be a resource to, and make sure that we're really cognizant of that when we're out there, you know, with our brand ambassador team or doing activations. And then I think also to one of Cesar's points, when we're building that programming itself, whether it's, you know, an online speaker series or whether it's actually something at a live event, making sure that we're constantly seeking and just mindful of a diverse array of talent. So we want to uplift and elevate and help identify, you know, new industry tastemakers and new thought leaders, because we know that they're out there. It takes a little bit more work and it takes a little bit more time to kind of find those people and evaluate them as a fit for the brand. But at the end of the day, I think representation really matters. And I think we have some incredible people on our team. I'm going to shout out Anne Louise and Jessamine, that are really thoughtful about how they approach kind of guest talent and what that looks like, so that we're not just constantly dipping into the same well of people that you often kind of see celebrated. And that's not to say that those people aren't talented or great educators, but I think for those of us that have a platform, it's really important that we do the work to build a bigger table.
No, absolutely. Really, really great points. And reaching outside of our group, because we do see the same people over and over and over again. And I know I've been one of those, you know, just like nobody else sees like so many presentations. And what I'm seeing, and I'm sure you guys do see as well, is like, if you start going to other restaurants and bars that aren't on the top 50 list or whatever, and you're looking, I've noticed, I'm like, wow, this guy's or this person's really talented. Like, look at what they're doing. And then start having conversations with them. Like, where did you learn? They're like, oh, I was the bar back for the last 10 years. And during COVID, they got promoted to bartender because there was nobody else to fill the gap. And this person's amazing. And I hear that story so often. I see a lot of people who used to be working as barbacks are now working as bartenders, and they're all self-taught. And I'm like, wow, these people need a stage. And I realized they have no idea about the bubble. They don't know this. I was like, so I'm almost, I feel like I'm going to create a placard and like just start handing them to them. Like, okay, when you leave tonight, I want you to look up the USBG, you know, the Campari Academy, you know, here's some of the trade shows you should be aware of. And start putting yourself on Instagram, you know, just get yourself out there in the world. But such amazing stuff. I'm glad to hear all of these things are going on, and you guys are doing such a great job of bringing more people into our little bubble. We definitely need some more diversity in there. Well, speaking of that and bringing people in and building people's personalities, I'm a big believer in building a personal brand, right? So putting yourself out there in the world. And I think it's really important for brand ambassadors to kind of do this on their own, to kind of build their personal brand, and for the company to kind of support them and give them a platform. So what is your company's philosophy on this? Like, how do they feel about that? And what are some of your best practices to kind of make that happen? Marie, you want to start this time?
Sure. Yeah. One of the things I've always felt at Campari and that I really like as part of our culture is that there is really this strong sense of supporting people in terms of upward mobility within their career. So whether it's, you know, stemming from, you know, leadership and management top down, or even our HR team has implemented a lot of really incredible resources that are available to anyone at the company, whether it's, you know, language learning programs in partnership with Rosetta Stone, or you can apply to be part of a tuition reimbursement program if you'd like to go back to school and get an advanced degree. We even have access to content through Discus because we're a Discus partner. So there's a lot of stuff at a very like corporate level that I think are available to people to kind of help their own professional development. And then I think when we look really at the brand ambassador team, one thing that I talk about this a lot with like new hires that's important to recognize is you really have to find a way to show up to be authentic to yourself and how you represent this brand, right? Because you're unfortunately 24/7 a public facing entity sometimes, which means that, you know, the work doesn't just stop because it's 6 o'clock. So how do you show up in a way that feels appropriate for your brand and your category, but also feels true to kind of your sense of self, and really making sure in kind of your first couple of months that you're working towards that, right? And maybe your sense of style, how you dress, how you run a training, the things you put on the internet, all of that, and kind of finding that balance of who am I, you know, as a professional, as a brand ambassador, and how does that kind of parallel into just who I am as a person? Because I think more than anyone else in this industry, brand ambassadors just being the public face, the public voice, that's so crucial. So one, just encouraging people to kind of find that and help them with that where they need it. And then I think as well, really, one thing we really kind of push people towards is, you know, taking more active leadership roles within the industry. So whether it's participating in the USBG or other festivals, or submitting for seminars, which could be, you know, here's the basics of bourbon history, or it could be like how to build a more inclusive space. Again, kind of what drives you, what is your role as a leader and as someone with a voice in this industry, and how can we kind of elevate that based on your own, you know, personal interests or passion points. And then outside of that, one of the things that gives me a lot of joy as a manager is when people kind of identify themselves that they're really interested in something and they want to go back to school or they want to do additional study. So anytime someone approaches us with that, we're super supportive, but we will identify 1 or 2 people to go to Bar 5 Day, which is a pretty intensive course every year. And then outside of that, making sure that we have access to things like, you know, WSET or CSS, just to kind of support people's individual interests.
I think about after this conversation, there's just going to be a bunch of people wanting to apply to Campari. Sounds fantastic. Sounds like my kind of place. I love all that, and I guess it is all about the people taking the initiative and also finding their true sense, like their true self, to put it out there in the world. All really, really great points. Caesar, for you guys.
Yeah. Can I just call out how eloquent her words are? Like,
oh, I know.
Can I go first next time so then she could just
Sorry.
finish it off? I can't continue this.
Yeah.
No, I think similar. I think Campari has done a great job. I do admire them a lot, and obviously, and actually, me and Marie met at a Campari trip. So I think at a smaller scale, we try to do those things, but I think with us not having the complete resources of a bigger company, I think we look more internally to ourselves. So, you know, hey, did you know that Caesar is really good at so-and-so at Excel? Why don't you talk to him and have him teach? So we're all very open of like, hey guys, if you guys need help, let us know. We'll find time out. So we're a little bit, you know, I would like to say a little bit more scrappy in that sense. But we also do have like both our Mezcal brand ambassadors for our company, you know, have basically a Mezcal diploma. I won't go into the official title because it's very long, but basically they have done that and we'll support that. If anyone wants to take a language course, or, you know, wants to learn, you know, maybe I want to eventually go into marketing. I can start going back to college for marketing, get my marketing degree. Casa Lumbre will help support all of those good things. So I think it's just on a smaller scale that we do it, and we do it a little bit more internally. But I think as a company, we've done such a great job. And I think the shout out to Camille, because she sees so much potential in someone, and she sees already what, you know, we all develop personal development plans, or PDPs, of our 1, 3, and sort of 5-year, what we look to see once we're not brand ambassadors, or what we want to do, and we build it out, and she kind of helped us get there. But she always sees that 5-year plan ahead of time, and I'm just like, I can't see it. She's like, just give it time. So I think she sees something that I don't, and that's what I've been trying to get from her, who is my current mentor, really. And just kind of seeing the potential where they want to go and how to empower them. And I think all our ambassadors have a really specific identity. They all have their amazing strengths, and we can all rely on them. But it's really awesome to see them from the 6th month to year 1. You're like, this is a complete transformation. And it just starts snowballing when you're telling someone how great they are. Like, you are now, you know, the X person, or this Mezcal queen, or whatever you want to call it. And they're just like, no, please. They start humble. And then eventually they're like, yeah, you know what? I am a badass. Like, I can do this. And it just, and then they sort of take over the world. So I think I think we do that in a much, much smaller scale, but we're all just so willing to help and share our knowledge, which is really awesome. And not only with us internally, but with other people. I always tell people they can call me and I will share. I'm an open book and there's no secrets. I think some people, the mistaken thing is to maybe push someone down to make yourself look bigger. And I think that's the complete opposite. For me, my personal joy is how can I help develop someone? And when they get to their level, like, not because I want credit, but it just makes me happy that they've reached that and I was a part of it.
Yeah, amazing. That's an incredible philosophy and a way of doing it. And it shows that even small companies, even when being scrappy, can help develop people. I think some people overlook that and they're like, oh, we're too small. I'm like, no, you can always help other people expand. I think and I would love to hear your thoughts, because people have asked me this. They're like, what about the people, the brand ambassadors, who suddenly seem to be all about them and not their brand? Like they're building themselves up. I mean, have you ever seen, we're not going to name people or any of that stuff, but do you believe there can be a disconnect? Like, my philosophy is you always have to tie the brand in some way. So you could be your fabulous, authentic self, but if it all just becomes about you and just about you, and then suddenly it's like, well, the brand paid for you to be there, and where's the brand? What are your thoughts about that?
I think there's a balance. I think I started off with the brand heavy side. And I think, again, Camille's like, you need to show your face more. Like, we need to see you, like people like you. And I think that's my humble self of like, here's, Aba Solonista. So then I did start bringing that up. And sure enough, people, you can see the engagement and you see, oh, wow, I think when we're in the relationship business, as Marie said, I am not going to buy X brand so much because of X brand. I'm going to buy it because Marie sells it and I like Marie. Simple as that. Mm-hmm. So when Marie changes jobs, if she does, hopefully you never do, Marie, but when we move on, because it's the business of movement and changes and opportunities, I'm going to just continue to buy what Marie sells because I like her as a person. And I think that's the very thing. So if I never saw Marie's face, but I only saw the brand, once she leaves, I'm still going to be hitting Marie. She's like, I don't do that anymore. I actually do X. I'm like, all right, well, who does it? Instead of following the person. So when you look at a bottle, and if someone thinks of you or vice versa, they think of you and they say you're the bottle, I think you're doing an excellent job, and it's a perfect balance of both. I
think that's an excellent point. Marie, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. See, now, Cesar, it's your turn to be eloquent. No, I totally agree. I think it is absolutely about finding balance. And I think it goes back a little bit to what I was mentioning about how do you show up in this role in a way that feels authentic and genuine to you? What are your personal interests, hobbies, etc.? And, it's okay to celebrate and showcase those, but how do we also kind of find a connection to the brand or make sure that we're just a little bit balanced in what that approach is? And I also just want to highlight something Cesar said about Camille and how she often kind of maybe sees something within people that they don't see within themselves, and she can kind of see a future path that people don't see. I think that's a sign of a really excellent leader, but I think it also underscores this point of, I work for a corporate company and we have access to resources. And I'm really fortunate and privileged that that's my position, but you don't have to work for a company of this size to have access to that. You just need to have an approach of fostering talent and kind of creating that culture from within to really kind of grow that. And I think that's really important with what Cesar was saying.
No, absolutely. It does show that you really can. Doesn't matter the size of the company, you can foster that culture and make it an education and enhancing people's skill sets and helping them to grow. And then people will stay with you longer, which I think is a big thing. Now, I know we're approaching our hour. Cesar, I heard your alarm go off. So do you have time for our last question?
Absolutely.
Okay, because we're kind of already talking about this, about developing people, and I don't expect us to solve this question, because this is a question that I think I want to have a forum one of these days for all the advocacy directors and everything get together, and we can discuss this and come up with some ideas. But, it's something a lot of people debate, which is, what does a brand ambassador do after they stop being a brand ambassador or they want to move up? Like, there's, you become the senior brand ambassador, you can become the national brand ambassador. the global brand ambassador, but there's only so many of those positions. So what can a brand ambassador do to be proactive so that they do have a career? And then like any thoughts about what might be a path for somebody within the industry? And you can just say, I'm not sure, because a lot of people don't know. So, but I think being proactive, I don't know. This time, all right. So who did I start with last time? Marie, I'm going to start with you this time. Sorry,
okay. Yeah, one of the things that I think is both a really amazing opportunity, but can also be a really crippling challenge, is that I'm not sure that there is like a linear career path for a brand ambassador the way that there exists in other roles within this industry. And so on one hand, it's pretty amazing that you could kind of parlay this experience into a lot of different things. And on the other hand, if you're not really sure what you're interested in or what your future looks like, that can be really crippling to be like, there's so much in front of me. I don't really know where to start. I see a lot of people kind of go into either sales, or they go back to the bar as either a manager or a bar owner, or some people are interested in marketing. Those are kind of the three most common pathways that I see. I think what's important if you're trying to figure this out, like, I really love this, but I've got to think about my life 5 years from now, or, like, I don't want to be on the road so much. I think it's really important to just think about the things that you like doing, the things that you don't love doing. If you can start to get exposure within your organization, or maybe even outside, to some alternate kind of roles, right? Some alternate kind of career paths, and maybe even cross train a little bit. So if you're a brand ambassador and you're really interested in marketing, like, can you start to sit in on some of the marketing team meetings and like really get an understanding of what that job entails before you're kind of at the interview stage and realizing that for yourself. I think mentorship is huge, as well as networking, because that can really help just broaden your horizons and give you a really good perspective on maybe some things that you're not even thinking about. And I think what's probably most important is, regardless of what you've decided that you want to do, you have to be the most vocal advocate for yourself as early and often as you can. So whether it's with your line manager, with the VP, if you're comfortable and have that relationship, whether it's with your mentor, you want to start making sure that people know, like, these are the things that I'm interested in, so that, when the opportunity arises, you're kind of the name that they're thinking of. You're the person that they're thinking about. Oh, well, they expressed interest, so maybe we should, talk to them about it.
No, that's great advice. It's how I got to some of the positions I had. Was like, just kept telling, and sometimes people would gotta tell you no. Yeah. They're gonna be like, no, we don't see that. And then you just have to keep putting it out there and start making moves towards it, because then the right person comes in. They're like, yeah, totally see you doing that. Let's make it happen. And as Anne Louise, I was going to say, Anne Louise one time came on the show, and she said, she changed her career because she saw a position she wanted to do, and she just started doing the job that she wanted. She just like, I just started doing the job I wanted. And then eventually people started associating me with that job. And then I was able to get that job. So I was like, do the job you want before you have the job.
Yeah, I think it's one thing that like I've personally struggled with in my career is feeling a little bit bound by like the jobs that currently exist, and maybe not seeing a place for me. And so if you can get outside of that kind of box of a framework of, I really want to do this job. It doesn't exist at this company or, wherever I am, but I'm going to start talking about it, and I'm going to start putting myself in that position. You just never know what could happen. Opportunity there is. So I just think that, again, going back to just being an advocate for yourself, and starting to kind of build that pathway is really important.
No, I think that's great words of advice, because the job might not exist. There are jobs today that didn't exist 5 years ago. So, who ever knew, like, being a TikTok influencer would be a career. So if you can think it, you could probably create it. And then if you find the right people, you can make it happen. I mean, I think that's a very true statement. Caesar, sorry, we just,
No, yeah, no, I love it. I love it. Nothing to say. We've reached the end of our podcast. No, I think just to elaborate on Marie's point, she said something that really, it's like, think about it. I think that we should write it down. I think a lot of people just think out loud and loud. Like, I have, whether it's on the computer, a Word document, whether it's physically writing down, whatever your preference is, write it down and start kind of envisioning it. And, if that's your mood board or whatever that may be, but you start to manifest it. And once you see it on paper, I think a lot of it changes for me. When I think it, you're just thinking out loud, and you may just forget. But I try to write as many notes as I can. If I think of something cool or any idea that I have, just write it down on your notes on your phone. We all have these portable computers, so there's no excuse. And then once you start writing it down, then maybe that's when you go to Campari Academy or a mentor or something and say, how can I write like a proposal to kind of create this role in my job? And then you have something a little bit more professional, more looking. So I think really the power for me, and something that I've noticed, is that when I write it down, I then adjust it. It turns from 1.0 to 3.0 very quickly. And then you go, okay, I think this is what I want to do now. So I think that's true. I think the lineage that we think is, we make fun of it on Mover and Shaker, where it's like server, bartender, real estate, back to bartender, or whatever it may be. I think it's not linear. We have so many skill sets that I think we've been stuck and molded into this square box, or this is what our life is, or what we are lifers sort of thing. I think it's time to start thinking of, what are my strengths? What do I like doing? Let me write that down. What do I want to do for the rest of my life in 5-10 years? And then see what those key words connect to in a different professional manner. So it doesn't always have to be the industry. But yeah.
No, I think I somebody who has 2 whiteboards in my little office, who writes stuff down. I mean, there's one right in front of me, there's one to the side, and I am one of those people who write my affirmations every day, things that I want to come to fruition. Every goal I've ever written down, I've managed to achieve, because if it's there, you visually see it, and if you look at it, and then it's just like constantly, it's like, how am I going to work towards it? But if it's just in your head, it's kind of like just a thought. But writing it down, and trust me, for anybody who's listening, I mean, my career has been very strange. I started on the marketing side. I pitched to Diageo in 2005. I wanted to be the head mixologist and brand ambassador. I went from marketing into brand ambassadorship, out of brand ambassadorship and the mixology, and they were like, "What the fuck is a mixologist?" After 12 years, created that position that did not exist, and then went to Anheuser-Busch and became a global manager, managing and creating strategy again. So, and now running my own company. So you can think it, you can make it happen. So it's been an odd one, but it's been a fun ride so far. This has been great stuff. So we're gonna wrap it up with the final question, which I always ask, which is, and I'm sorry I didn't give you guys the forewarning of this one, but it's always, if you could give one word of advice to a new brand ambassador taking the role, besides the fact you need to love the brand that you're going to work for, what would it be? So Caesar, I'm gonna start.
I think something that the simplest advice I can give is, if you can't drink it every day, don't do it.
Yeah.
If you can't drink it every day, if it's not true to who you are and what you represent, it's not going to work. As much money as they're going to pay you, as many benefits, as much as you're going to travel and all that good stuff, if you cannot get yourself behind that brand, or in a self, you don't even like it or want to drink it, and that's the simplest way, then don't do it, because it's not going to work. No matter how hard you try, you just can't do something you don't love. And I think that's what we see every day with quote unquote corporate office, whatever job. People are not happy. I think Marie, myself, and you included, we're all very happy with what we do, and it shows, and you feel it. And that's why we're being successful, because we're putting that positive energy out, and people are like, wow, I want to do what you're doing. But if I wasn't happy about it, I've met a lot of brand ambassadors that, you should not be here, or even bartenders. Why are you doing this? It's like, because I have to, sort of thing, or because they're paying me. If money is the only motive, you're doing it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. Marie?
I think mine would be, it is a marathon, not a sprint. People are really excited, especially if you've never been on this side of the industry before. I see a lot of people really excited about traveling and going to events, and there's a lot of opportunity. And I think it's important to remember that doesn't go away. It will stay. If you're doing your job right and you're doing your job well, you will have a lot of opportunity to travel, to go to events, to lead seminars, to lead discussions. So make sure that you're pacing yourself, that you are setting boundaries, setting expectations, building a way of working in a balance that works for you both personally and professionally, and just that you're kind of well-rounded in that regard.
No, I think that's the great words of advice. everything here, it's been an amazing conversation with the two of you. As I said before, you both just impressed me so much. So thank you so much for coming on the show. For those of you watching, I hope you got a lot out of this, because I definitely know I did. And it's Friday, so we're going to say it's a wrap. And thank you both for coming on. And for those watching, thank you for joining us on Celebrate the Brand Ambassador. And have a great weekend, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was so fun.
Thanks, everybody. Chat
Bye.
soon.
Bye.